It has only been 7 days, but so far it seems like Joe Biden's withdrawal and his likely replacement by Kamala Harris has worked out well for the Democrats. Polls suggested that Donald Trump would easily beat Biden in November, but Harris has erased that gap in no time, amidst a slew of celebrity endorsements and fundraising successes. So how will the race play out over the next few months? Well, I'm going to shortly be joined via Zoom by the Democratic strategist and political commentator Robert Weiner. And here in the studio, I have US political analyst Dr. Roger Gewolb. Welcome, Roger. So firstly, let me ask you how you feel about Kamala Harris as the nominee. Is it likely that she can beat Donald Trump at this point?
Second question, no, I don't think it's likely. And how do I feel about it? Well, it's kind of a joke, frankly. I mean, it's only hours ago that she wasn't endorsed by anybody, that she had an abysmal track record. And now, all of a sudden, Camelot, I call her Camelot because she's King Arthur Obama's Camelot. And her surname is Harass, because she's going to harass the hell out of us if she does get in. She was so unpopular that her ratings were below old Joe Biden's. And then, of course, when Obama's strategy to continue his third term, into a fourth term collapsed because Joe just couldn't keep up, they were thrown into a terrible problem of damage limitation. And what she was put there for in the first place, they made work for them. She is a woman, she is Asian, and she is black. Three things that have nothing whatsoever to do with being president of the United States or any other country, but that has carried her on something of a tsunami wave, at least for now. However, the poll, just to finish, of 2 points and so on and so forth is nonsense, like so many polls are. I go by our bookies. The British bookies have been around for hundreds of years because they're not usually wrong. And at the moment, they put Donald Trump at more than double the odds of Camelot becoming president.
But even with the media, I have to say the American media, from what I've been following, is very overwhelmingly supportive of her, even though they weren't really about 4 weeks ago. But they're now sort of trying to reinvent her. And it has clearly been successful to a degree.
I think it was 8 minutes ago.
Right, yeah, probably more like that.
Yeah.
But it has made a dent in the polls, So is it possible, in other words, that kind of media firestorm, that kind of support will make the difference, could tip the balance?
And speaking of the race to be president of the leader of the free world, if America still is that, it's perhaps disrespectful to call it clickbait, but it's not far away. That's what's going on. That's why they're doing it. It's newsworthy. You can promote this lady who 5 minutes ago was the last possible choice. Nobody wanted her. The greatest thing is the Obamas, Mr. and Mrs. Obama's telephone call.
Yes.
Endorsing her.
Yes.
Which is it's almost as bad as the opening to the Paris Olympics.
Yeah, well, and it of course, wasn't staged in any way.
No, no.
Let's cross the pond now and get the thoughts of Democratic strategist and political commentator Robert Weiner. Welcome to the show, Robert. I want to ask you about Kamala Harris. A lot of Democrats are nervous about her, don't think that she is the best possible candidate, but that this is a case of they have no choice at this stage. Do you think that's right, or do you think that she can really turn this around?
Well, Andrew, thank you for having me. And I notice you have an audience, so hello to audience also. Great to see you. It's the first I've seen your audience, actually, so terrific. Andrew, I can't believe what Mr. Gewolb was saying and how off he is. The most recent issue of Time magazine just out, it's now the former president's race to lose, Trump ascendant, and Biden bows out. They forgot that Kamala, just in a week, has set an all-time record. Have either of you guys, by the way, Andrew, I love you, but you were a little off on this one, too, with agreeing with him. Have you guys ever heard of a movement? A movement? That's what's happening here. The most recent polls show that in the youth vote, the critical youth vote, that they are 20 points higher than they were with Biden. The Hispanics have closed. And to your point of, there's disagreement among the Democrats. Yeah, 94% of Democrats support Harris for president now. 94%. And so it's going to be by acclamation. It's going to be unanimous in the convention. She's already locked in the votes. And she has raised $180 million in her first week, an all-time record. And Trump is scared. to the point where the Washington and Putin is scared to the point where the Washington Post today said Moscow wary of Harris's bid. Hey, is that a bad thing? That's great. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be.
So can I ask you, Robert, are you suggesting that in an ideal world, if you had complete openness to choose who the candidate would be, you would actually want Kamala Harris? You would put her at top of the list anyway?
I would go with the vice president because that's what she is. I would say that, and everybody said that's the normal one. And all of the other candidates, from Whitmer to to Bashir and all of that, all of the candidates, and I don't have to name them all. They were all there. They all are not running. They all are deferred to Kamala Harris. And so you guys can make a joke of it, but for Trump to call her a bum when he's the one who was convicted of 34 felonies, his college was closed, his foundation was closed, he's had 7 bankruptcies, and he is the con and the fraudster that is perfect for a prosecutor to go after the perpetrator, which is what she's going to do, and nail him in the debates. He is scared to death right now, and he should be, because this is a movement in the making, Andrew. And I love you and your show, but you guys are missing the boat if you don't see that.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much. We're just going to bring back in now Roger on that. Can you respond specifically to what Robert is saying about this being a movement, that there is evidence that particularly the younger voters are really excited about Kamala, and that this, it could spell the end for Donald Trump? Roger, what do you think of that?
Well, I think movement is the right word. I can think of some other movements that might be, an analogy. I mean, you're wonderful, Robert. I've never met you, but you're so famous, and I'm really glad to, and honored to be able to have this debate with you. But if I'm off, you're somewhere near the second furthest planet, the one just before Neptune, my friend. I mean, really.
I like it out there.
Yeah, good. Okay, well, enjoy it. I mean, I have to say to you, everything you've just cited, this poll and that poll and this article and this person, it's all about a nonsense. Do you know that the British bookies, I was just saying, have got Trump still on more than 2-1? I mean,
let me ask you about those bookies.
Please let me finish.
Roger will finish his point, then I'll come straight back.
I didn't interrupt you, sir. I mean, 5 minutes ago, people were talking about Gavin Newsom, so slick, and nobody thought about this lady. What happened was damage limitation. The floor fell through. Poor old Joe fell through it. Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, the worst president we ever had, and a whole bunch of nutters with respect, like you, sir, came up and said, what are we going to do? Oh, my God, let's grab the vice president and exclude everybody else, not give people, just like they've done here 4 times, a chance to vote on the leader of this country. Let's just shove her in like they did Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, who were fabulous, if you know who they are, and they've stuck her in. The woman can't string a sentence together any better than Joe Biden. Okay. She's failed on the border in Mexico. I mean, she's got a track record like a train wreck, and you're telling me, can't you feel the movement? Can you feel the music? Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Roger. You've been very, very clear. And Bob, I want to give you the opportunity, obviously, to respond in your own time to that.
Well, I love how Roger is mentioning the British bookies. How many of the last Kentucky Derby winners did they pick right? None. And so the answer is
quite a few, I think.
I didn't interrupt.
Roger,
I agreed not to interrupt
you. He asked me a question.
Yes, we'll get there. So, and also on the finance background that you have, Roger, it's been very successful, except that the financiers are the ones for Trump because he asked for $1 billion and he'd do whatever the oil companies want. And that's his corruption. He changed on TikTok.
But Kamala's new money, came from the 0.1%. It came from Silicon Valley and George Soros and a few other people. 10 people gave her that money. Come on, what does that mean for ordinary Americans like the rest of us?
Okay,
$1 billion from oil, and I'll do whatever you want. That's a direct quote from his private fundraiser. This guy is slime and corrupt.
If you'll be my friend, Iran, I'll give you some nuclear weapons. Okay, that's what Obama did 6 years ago.
So I just want to come to Robert on this point, though. In terms of Kamala Harris, obviously there's a big disagreement going on here. The key question really is whether she can beat Donald Trump, whether that can be done. And it's not really clear that you would admit, wouldn't you, Robert, that she wasn't popular. She did have to drop out of the primaries in 2020 to avoid the humiliation of receiving so few votes. She doesn't have the...
So did Biden. He ran 3 times before he finally won. So did Bill Clinton. He talked so long that he was thrown out of the presidential field when he first talked to the Democratic convention. I was standing there right along near the floor with him, my wife and I. And so lots of people have had horrible beginnings. But the thing that counts in polling, Roger, is the trending. And the trending is movement. And the movement is for Harris now. And it is either a tie or she's 2 up, depending on pick your poll. And we've only just begun. It's been 1 week. So he is getting worse and worse. And by the way, his sentencing comes up in a month, and there's going to be the mini trial in Washington that's going to be allowing the facts in and the discussion as though it's a real trial, reminding everybody of what he's done. This guy
let me ask Roger about that, because I think that's important. Roger, can I ask you specifically about that? Because obviously the Democrats are going to be pushing the idea that he is a convicted felon.
But Robert forgets to mention that those corrupt, horrible, despicable judges sitting on the United States Supreme Court have thrown out most of these cases. Duh.
Yeah, all the ones
Robert?
that Trump claimed he lost 64 cases about the election, and he's still claiming he won. He lost 64 of 64 cases, if you remember. You remember that little detail that he lost in every court, even the ones he appointed?
I know Trump.
Silence. I
know Trump, and I'm going to tell him that notwithstanding what you say, when he drains the swamp, I'm going to tell him Robert is not part of the swamp, so leave him alone.
Well,
Thank you.
How magnanimous.
I'd be honored.
Roger.
I've already, by the way, I worked in a White House for 6.5 years, on Capitol Hill for 12.
I know.
Okay. So I think I know a little
so
bit
I don't
about
know
the
what
swamp,
happened to you. Somebody must have hit you in the head or something.
1 to 2% are corrupt. Those are despicable because the thing you should want in power is the ability to do the most for the most people possible. But there is the 1 or 2% corrupt, and Trump is one of them.
Now, some obviously very heated disagreement, and that's fair enough because we're all about free speech here. But Robert, can I just ask you on a personal level, do you find Kamala Harris inspiring? Do you see her as a potential leader? Do you listen to her speeches and think, yes, that's the person we need?
I wasn't for her in the beginning, but I've listened to her since. She is amazing. When
my God, she got exciting overnight.
Are you interrupting me?
I'm sorry.
Please let Robert finish, and then I'll come to you finally. Robert, what's your point?
When she says that I know his type, and the ones who are corrupt, they're fraudsters, they're cons, they've sex abusers. He's been not guilty totally, but paid $85 million for. She knows that type, and closed and bankruptcies and college and foundation shut down. She knows that type. She will prosecute him to where he is cowering in the corner of his debate room when that debate happens.
Okay, well, finally, Roger, final thought from you on that.
That's all.
Just laughter. Okay, well, there we go. Well, listen.
It's a pleasure. I hope to meet you in person someday.
Thank you both ever so much for joining me.
You've made my evening, Robert. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Robert and to Roger. I do really appreciate you coming on here and debating the issues.